haters or messengers. Teal Swan says that people that come into your life that frustrate you are messengers meant to, teach you things. That we're all teachers because we're all connected to each other. We're all learning from each other. I definitely agree with that. Joyce Meyer says that a lot of people came into her life that were like sandpaper because she had a lot of rough edges. And that was God's way or life way or the universe. I always say God, life, or the universe because some people conceptualize this in terms of God. Some people conceptualize it in terms of life. Some people conceptualize it in terms of the universe, in terms of, excuse me, in terms of this, primordial or primary force or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't care what you call it. I mean, there is some force in the universe that is driving these things. And, to me, it doesn't really matter whether you call it God or life or the universe or whatever is meaningful to you. Just that you recognize this force. I mean, some people are atheistic or agnostic, and I respect that also. But to me, it's kind of like some people can see auras and some people can't. I mean, just the ability to understand that there's some life force, there's some current in the world that drives these things. I think there's so many examples of it, and I think a lot of my podcasts have focused on some of these examples. So, another thing that Teal says, I mean, she's only one of the people I listen to, but she says a lot of good things. I don't agree with everything she says, but I agree with a lot of it, actually, because she's very smart. But anyway, another thing that she says is that, now I'm losing my train of thought, but, the main point in terms of haters or messengers is that we are here, to expand ourselves. We're in an expansive universe. And Abraham, who's another person I listen to sometimes, it's a collection of entities actually, quite well known, world famous. And they talk about expansion and that we're here to be creators, deliberate creators, and to learn what we want and what we don't want in this world, and then to not fight resistance, but to have kind of the art of allowing. Like when you resist things, what you resist resists you. Like Oprah says, I know I'm quoting everybody under the sun, but it's amazing how so many people basically get to the same point in a little bit different ways. Oprah says she lives her life, I think it's by the third law of thermodynamics. It's the one that says, I don't have, I have a little bit of allergies, but I just have a sore throat. So my I think I've been talking too much actually. Sometimes that's kind of an interesting side bit. I don't know what the factor is, if anybody's a physician or whatever, but I find a lot that my voice during my life gives out easily. I guess some people have stronger voices than others, but I find since I'm pretty little, if I do a lot of talking, I mean, I know that's true for some people, but sometimes even if I just talk for an hour or two, my voice can get kind of gravelly or whatever. So, I mean, it's not always that way. Sometimes I can talk for days and days, but anyway, Oprah says that the third law of dynamics, if that's the one that she's referring to actually, is that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, there's another one that says energy is neither created or destroyed, but the action and the opposite reaction. I'm writing a whole book called The Dialectic that basically talks about thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. This is a big part of it, that anything we do in life has a reaction, has the polarity of its opposite, related to it, because we live in a world of polarity. So we can get beyond that. I think there's different ways, but by and large, we some people call it karma, some people call it the law of attraction, some people call it the golden rule. Basically, it is, as you sow, so shall you reap. This is what Oprah's talking about, that, if you manifest a certain thought, and Napoleon Hill and others talk about, thoughts being things, that if you manifest a certain way of thinking that relates to your feelings, because your thinking gives rise to your feelings, and because if you think a lot of angry thoughts, then you'll start to feel angry. And if you start to feel angry, then you'll start to act angry. And if you start to act angry, then you'll have a life that is impacted by your anger. So they say that, thinking, that's why they say, as a man thinketh, so he is. And the same thing with a woman. Obviously, as a person thinks, so they are. It's really because there's like 3 or 4 steps, or however many you want to think of it. First thing you think the thought, then it leads to an emotion. The emotion leads to an action, and the action leads to your destiny. That's why they say character is destiny, right? I mean, I've said that. I'm sure other people have also. But it's really like your thinking is your destiny, because your thinking infuses your character maybe a couple of steps removed. But back to haters are messengers. So everything in life is a message. Like, we're meant to always learn and grow. Like, I had a podcast earlier today about some of the difficult things I went through in terms of how people treated me and what I learned from that. And I think that, sometimes we learn the quick way and sometimes we learn the not so quick way. I think if we're like a little bit more receptive and open, then we learn quicker. And that's one thing that I'm working on in my life, to have like less resistance to like learning, from other people. Because I think I used to be, in my opinion, somewhat of a know-it-all. And I think that's like actually a sign of insecurity, because like when we're open to life, we feel like we can be touched by life and learn from other people. And that includes, our haters. Sometimes we need to keep distance from people because we can't just let people beat up on us. But we do have to be open to the messages that, people are kind of communicating. Like, one of my earlier podcasts, I also talked about like communication by thought. Like, I'm not going to get too esoteric here because I could go on for like an hour to explain this in full, but a couple of different dimensions. One is that, like, how things are moving from typing now to voice, because voice is like easier than typing. Eventually it's going to move from thinking to voice, because just thinking something is easier than actually speaking it. And there's a lot of research now that is focused on, thought-controlled things, just like, people that are paralyzed can use their mind to move like a cursor or move like a wheelchair, or I'm not sure all the things that are involved, but there's a big body of research into this now. So the thinking, is powerful, because thoughts are things, and, especially if we learn how to channel it more. And the thoughts between people are things also. Like, you've heard of commingling, how things can influence each other even if they're thousands of miles apart. Maybe it's millions of miles apart. Maybe it's the whole universe. I don't know. But if things are commingled, so people in their energy can be commingled. It doesn't just have to be soulmates. It could be people that have relationships or connections in different capacities or in different forms or different degrees. So when you think about someone, it's almost kind of like they're there with you in some respect, because like somebody could be deceased, but if you still love them, their presence is basically with you. I mean, whether their actual presence is with you or not, I don't know. But I do believe that we call it, into form. I do believe that, like, when we think of another person, there is a bond there, even if we're not physically present with that person. I think that to the degree that they're open to you, you can actually communicate with the person by thought. Just like you could, don't think it's crazy, because think about this. If you can move a computer with your brain, why can't you connect telepathically with another person with your brain? It doesn't mean that they're going to, even consciously be aware that they're talking to you. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But they might be influenced. Like, have you ever just like suddenly had like, a thought of someone, maybe they were thinking of you or something else triggered it? Because I believe that, like, we're always influencing each other, not only on the physical level, excuse me, my voice, I talk too much, not only on the physical level, but on the karmic level, on the, aura level, on the subconscious level, on the unconscious level, on the soul level, many different levels. And I think telepathy is a big part of that, because think of how much of your day you actually spend thinking about other people. And one of my books, I talked about like earthly justice and cosmic justice, and anybody that's wronged us, we spend sometimes too much time at thinking about. And I think that's a way to kind of try to karmically balance the scales, that we're like sending that person a message that they wronged us. And I think that's why people get fixated on that sometimes. It's the same thing with love. If we really love someone, we think about them. And I think that's a way of like, making the bond stronger, or, just keeping the connection. So, our haters are our messengers. So are the people that love us. It's not just our haters that are sending us a message. Everyone's sending us a message, that we come in contact with in a significant way. One other thing I want to say also is that about the topic of influence is that one expression I came up with is that when two people come together in good faith, that the one that is more certain always influences to a greater degree the one who is less certain. And the reason I say that is because I think we're all influencing each other, but I think the higher takes precedence over the lower. So if you have a higher consciousness, or it doesn't mean that it's going to be 100% to zero, it might be 80-20, it might be 70-30, it might be 60-40. Depends on the situation, the circumstances. But that's why growth is so important, because the higher you grow and the more conscious you become, the less you become impacted by negative energies. And, if someone is telepathically trying to hurt you, or just, correct you maybe, if you're at a very high level, then it's easier to either, tune it out or to listen but not be impacted by it.